Greetings, everyone. How you doing? This is Coach Fleischer, and today I'll be expanding on our conversation from a previous lecture regarding program design. And previously, we talked about how to break out a workout session, and I've also alluded to micro, meso, and macro cycles just in conversation in our previous lectures. And micro, meso, and macro cycles allow you to have a different framework in terms of longer term planning of your workouts. And the easiest way to remember this, when you look at this micro, like microscope, small, microscope allows you to look at small things. Mesocycle, you're on the mezzanine, you're kind of in between floors. And then macro, it's large. Or if you're in the business world, right, you're in the business curriculum, you have micro econ, very small, and you have macro economics, big picture. And where they have their place in programming is looking at a workout at a very small one session or 1 week picture out to perhaps, say, like if you're training for the Olympic team, you might have a quadrennial, a 4-year plan microcycle. And it's almost like puzzle pieces, right? So the microcycle itself could be one workout, could be 1 week, but when you put together a couple microcycles, it becomes a mesocycle. Well, shoot, if you put a bunch of microcycles together and it becomes a mesocycle, you have a couple of those all put together, it becomes a macrocycle. So the microcycle concept, when you think about planning and strategizing your workouts, and I talked about this in a previous presentation, chest on Monday, chest on Thursday, you had bench press on Monday, you had dumbbell incline flies on Thursday. It allows you to kind of be more granular and look at day to day how you want to map your stuff out. And the generally accepted max for a microcycle, which I know you're going to see this on a quiz somewhere, will be 1 week, right? So we don't say it's a microcycle; it's a 4-month microcycle. It's not correct to say it that way. And then when you look at meso, right? You look at this mapped out. Well, shoot, we just put together a couple microcycles to create a mesocycle. So here's one micro. Here's another micro that gives us 2 weeks. Well, 2 weeks in duration or more becomes a mesocycle, and that can actually encompass several months. So think back when we talked about maxes, and one of the things I brought up is like coaches in high school will drive their athletes towards having a test out or max out type of day. You don't max out every single week. So you might have a 3-month mesocycle where you take your athletes from sets of 10 down to sets of 8 to 6 to 4 to 3 to 2, and then you have a heavy week where you do a test out week on bench, on squat, on power clean. That's a very typical 12-week mesocycle that coaches will use to drive their athletes towards a test out week at some point in the season. Not in season, but in a competitive cycle for a year, they'll have an in-season, off-season, preseason. Usually those are seen in the off-season and preseason phases, so coaches can get an idea of how well their athletes have trained in the off-season. They use basically a 1-week microcycle to test out their athletes as part of a 12-week mesocycle. But realize you're talking 2 weeks to several months in duration. So this is the way it normally frames out, right? This would be more of a macro cycle, and you have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 months. So you have basically groupings of mesocycles. So programming wise, usually breaks out into different phases: in season, off season, preseason, and active recuperation. And as an athlete goes through the rigors of training, you have to have download weeks. You have to have weeks where you pull the volume back a little bit to allow the human organism to respond and not become overtrained, if you remember back to general adaptation syndrome. Philosophically, what this does here is you have a preseason phase, an off-season phase. As soon as the season is over, you have your athletes go through a week of active recuperation. It could be any kind of sweating activity. You're in the gym, you're working out, you're playing around, you're not really following a program. You do some cardio, maybe just some quirky stuff. You go out and play basketball with your buddies, etc. And then you go into the off-season phase. Like I mentioned before, you have this kind of 12-week, 3-month phase where you drive the athletes towards a test out week in a final in the end of that mesocycle. Little active recuperation where you drop off the training load, the training stimulus to allow the human organism to respond. Then they begin to overcompensate, and then you go into the preseason phase for a particular sport. Now, let's go back a couple presentations. This allows a coach to take their athletes through the general to specific, simple to complex layout and format that you see in training. In off season, this is more generalized training, right? It's more simple training. Up here, when we get into preseason, it gets more specific and more complex in nature. As you get into the in-season, playing the sport of tennis can't be any more specific to playing the sport of tennis. Playing golf and competing in golf can't be more specific to playing golf. Usually this is seen where you have this ebb and flow between the focus being on I'm playing golf, and I'm doing things to support my playing golf. Here I'm not playing much golf, but I'm doing things to become stronger so I'm better at my game. Here you end up layering in more golf-oriented activities, and then you get back into your in-season where it is playing golf. And I often talk with athletes, and I'm working with athletes, and I'll talk with them. I'll throw a speed ladder out, and we do running technique drills, or I'll do a technique warm-up. And perhaps I'll do a technique warm-up to start my workout session with them. And in that particular workout session, which is a microcycle, we're working on high knee walk, light skip, power skip, heel to butt, all the components of running and breaking it down to a whole philosophy, which I'll actually do a quick presentation on that a little bit. But when you look at running technique drills, you're teaching little components that translate into a ladder drill or hurdle drills, which then translate into more specific drills, which translates into very specific in-practice drills for a sport. So let's just look at this and take this through. A football player will do running technique drills, not because they want to sprint 110 meters, but because they want to become more efficient in their training and be able to run faster. And that ability to run faster allows them to perform better on the field, of course, but allows them to train harder and be better prepared for their sport. And the running technique drills require the athlete to be very ball of the foot oriented, being very explosive, quick off the ground, very powerful in nature. And then we apply that into the ladder. So the running technique drills have components that we apply into the ladder drill. Foot action, double pivot exercises, arch forward activity. And then we take that into, say, a wide receiver, and we do a passing tree drill where the receiver actually follows passing routes and practices those routes while reinforcing some of the things they learn in the running technique drills as well as the ladder drills. And then when they go ahead and they're in the in-season phase and they're working against a defense, they can work on those drills in the practice environment. And when they get to the game environment, they're not thinking about their body moving in space, they're just doing. So this kind of art meets science concept really starts to take place here when you look at evolving somebody's workout program from the off season to the preseason to the in-season as you take them through different mesocycles. And kind of mesocycles is really the sweet spot in terms of programming. Now, let's take our strength conditioning hat off and go into perhaps general population. You have somebody who comes in and they want to work out and get fit. Okay, Mrs. Johnson, why is it you're looking to get fit? I have a wedding coming up. Well, that's pretty easy to see. You have a competitive event or a life event, and it's not a 12-week in season. It's a wedding on a particular weekend in time, and you can kind of work through this in terms of mapping out mesocycles over time towards that date for the wedding. Okay, Mr. Smith, what's going on? I coach soccer with my kids, and every year I work with them, I'm getting more and more winded, and I can't run up and down the field while I'm coaching with them. I want to be in shape when our season starts this fall. Oh, right on. So here you are, you're 8 weeks out from the start of your soccer season. Let's map this out, how we can put you on a path to have you ready for the in-season if you will, put your fingers in quotes, to be able to run up and down the soccer field with your kids and not be winded. And so you can start to map these things out in a much bigger picture for your clients, and even in a prehab rehab setting. I need to get back to work. I need to work on mobility to be able to perform my job. Okay, we'll go ahead and come up with a plan strategically over 3 months, 2 months, whatever that mesocycle might be, to get you back to work. And your event date is them being able to go back to work. Start to frame yourself around planning ahead. So if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. I can't say it enough. Whether it's prehab, rehab, strength training, and speed, agility, and quickness for athletics, or working with the general population, you need to plan ahead. And go ahead when you start to actually look at your workouts once you get out of this class. Again, we've been doing a lot of total body fitness, a lot of calisthenics for this course. When you're done with this course, what will be the next steps for you? How will you evolve your workouts? What are you going to do next, and how will you lay things out? That's really the crux of this course. You being able to come in, process this information, and sure, pass a couple check for learnings, but be able to work out on your own once our time together is done. All right, guys, I'm signing off. I got a couple more videos I got to shoot. Have yourself a great one and have a great workout.